We designed DACA GRID to provide an effective balance of protection, ease of use, and reconfigurability, and there are some differences in setup compared to regular foam. To help provide the best DACA GRID experience possible, I'm going to go over a few things here on how to effectively set up your case for firearms and equipment of various widths. First, compression. Compression is what helps to make the system work as well as it does in protecting your firearms or other items. This is nothing new, as even regular multi-layer cut foam needs compression to work effectively. If you don't have enough compression in a system like that, your firearm can slip between the foam layers on an edge impact. DACA GRID uses compression to help hold the block supports and firearm firmly in place in a similar manner, but with even better protection against edge drops due to the design and materials used in GRID. In a proper installation, and indeed even without a firearm in the case, the lid should not fall closed easily, as there will be some intentional interference between the blocks and the lid foam. Closing the lid with some compression on your firearm presses the lower grid panel down into the bottom layer of foam and helps to lock both the firearm and the grid blocks in place. This is part of what makes GRID so effective at protecting your gear, as validated through many rigorous drop tests. In a polyethylene or other softer polymer case such as the Pelican Vault, you may see a bit of bulging to the case lid to get to the optimum level of compression, but some of that pressure will reduce as the foam takes a temporary set to that configuration. More rigid polypropylene cases, such as Pelican 1700 series cases or our own DACA hard cases, won't show as much of a bulge. With softer polymer cases, it is easier to close the case by starting with the side latches and closing the latch near any wide areas of a firearm last. The Magpul DACA hard cases have a cammed closure system to help snug down the case lid for proper compression without a struggle. The system works as normal for most common configurations of firearm, even with attached accessories like lights and larger optics. But when you've got a wide configuration, such as lasers together with a light, precision optics with really wide turrets, or sometimes even with just a light if it has a lot of standoff, here are some steps to help make the system work best for you. First, don't try to fill your grid layout with blocks. Use only enough blocks for support pillars and compartmentalization. This allows the lid foam to compress more easily over less surface area of blocks and firearm. Next, location. Try not to locate wide items too closely towards the hinge or latches. The middle of the grid system allows the most flex to occur and to provide the right amount of compression without excessive stress on the item or the case. Place items like lights or lasers facing up towards the lid foam and lid, but you can also place small protrusions like bolt knobs or charging handles in a location that allows them to stick into the open areas of the grid panels. If things still seem really tight, remember some compression is required and is a good thing, but if it's uncomfortably tight, even with the lid foam and grid system compressing to conform to the item, then there are a few other options. The first is to remove accessories if you can do so easily. This works well with things like bipods or even wide tactical bolt handles. Build yourself a little compartment for the removed accessory or drop them into a DACA pouch and you're all set. We obviously don't want to do this with zeroed things like lasers or accessories that require tools to remove, so the second option can be to remove a center grid panel. As long as you have the firearm correctly braced on both ends, you can effectively span a missing grid panel with little loss in protection, and this will allow you to protect items that are quite wide and still have the required compression. The last resort for when you don't want to remove a panel, or if your firearm configuration simply doesn't allow it, such as the wide area being on an end panel, is to cut a relief for the protruding areas of a firearm in the DACA grid panel where it sits. The grid panels trim very easily and cleanly with a razor knife. Trim extra room around your accessory, turret, or other protrusion to allow the support blocks to absorb any drop stress instead of the firearm. But wait, now I've trimmed my DACA grid just like I had to trim foam? Well, not really. Even if you trim out some space to accommodate a wide configuration, you can still use that panel for numerous other configurations. If the void interferes with a specific layout, you can flip the panel to get the void out of the way, shuffle it around to another location along the length of the case, or if you can't or just don't want to work around it, you can buy a replacement panel from Magpul customer service for a very reasonable cost. Then all you have to store is a single small grid panel instead of a large sheet of cut foam. If any of this seems a little unconventional to you, be assured that we did our research and testing before introducing GRID to the world, and that we've shipped, transported, dropped, and intentionally abused cases equipped with DACA GRID using these tips and setup guidelines with a wide variety of firearm types and configurations. We're absolutely confident in saying that it will provide better protection than regular foam while allowing nearly unlimited reconfigurability. If you have any other questions or issues, customer service will be glad to help you out, and you can fill out a contact form or simply call CS during business hours. Those contact methods and more information about DACA GRID can be found at magpul.com.